What's up, guys? So today you're going to be watching me draw La Brava while I answer a bunch of AMA questions. So enjoy that. All right, what's up, everybody? I figured today we would just go through an AMA. So I put this question out on my Instagram story, and it was just generally what questions do you have? Because I'm gonna do a video for an AMA. So these are a few of the responses I got back, and I'll try to go into detail of each question. And yeah, so let's get strapped in. Let's get ready. I'm drawing La Brava today because I think she's been a real star of the current season of My Hero. She's really killing it, and I'm really liking Gentle and La Brava right now. And I really wanted to draw her eyes because her eyes are really, they have these like really cool thick dark lines that I want to try to tackle. So, anyways, without further ado, let's get into this AMA. So the first one I have is by maybe I'm just not gonna say the names actually because I'm just gonna mess them all up. But I'm gonna put it up on the screen. So the first one is what to do to improve drawing skills. And I think my best way to answer that is, other than saying to like go look at how to draw books or watching YouTube tutorials, one way that has really improved me has been to just look at comic books and look at the way people, like the greats, are doing it. You know, look at the poses that they're trying to tackle and what kind of angles they're trying to tackle. And like even when you're watching an animated show or anime, like especially during like a really intense anime fight, I think it's really cool to like pause and go frame by frame and look at how each pose is done. And I mean, that's where you'll find sort of the beauty of the in-betweens in animation, is where like all the parts of a pose that aren't as important as the main key shot, I think, are equally as cool as the as the frames that they spend more time on. So that's my tip to you, is to definitely try and like pause and thumb through certain animes to see how like fight scenes play out. And I mean, even like video games like Fighter Z or Street Fighter has some really cool cutscenes that you can pause and see how they kind of modeled the poses after. Another thing I can recommend to improve is to, like YouTube is the golden library of information. I could suggest a couple artists like Jake Parker's videos, Keanan Lafferty's videos. They've played a big role in teaching me how to draw and how to, help improve my style. I mean, even a YouTube legend like Mark Criley maybe. You should check him out too. He has a lot of very great, just anime specific tutorials for drawing. But don't forget about me, baby, because I'm gonna start trying to put more tutorials on here and kind of how I deconstruct the body and whatnot. So look forward to that, hopefully one day. But all right, let's move on to the next one. So what software do I recommend? And I recommend Procreate. I live and die by Procreate right now. It's a actual blessing that it exists, because it has like things like time lapse, and Liquify is a lot more intuitive than in Photoshop. And it even has small little bits of information inside of the statistics panel. If you look in the settings, that even shows you the length of time you've spent on a drawing. Like if you look through the statistics, you'll find like how many hours are recorded on the drawing. And I think it's based off like how long is the pencil touching the screen when you're drawing, and which is really cool because you can kind of you're able to see in a snapshot time how long it took you to like work on like a 9-hour piece, and it cuts out all the times that you take a break and whatnot. So it's a good way to help you gauge if you want to sell your art and you want to know how long it takes to put a price to your hourly rate. So I mean, Procreate, just in so many different levels, I think rises to the top for me as the best recommended drawing software. I mean, I haven't had much experience in Clip Studio or Paint Tool Sci. I know is one that people use. I did design the first chapter of Sincerely Elise in Clip Studio, which because I was just trying to test drive the software, and I will say it has a lot of really fun tools and kind of extra tidbits that you don't get in Photoshop that are kind of manga essential. I know also in Clip Studio they have this sort of, you can bring in a 3D body and pose that body and use that as reference, so you could like trace it, or I think it even has a perspective grid. So I mean, if you want to get really in depth with it, I think Clip Studio has a bit more to offer on the drawing side than Photoshop does. But I've never, I've primarily used Photoshop before Procreate was, before I started using that a whole lot. So I mean, plus with the whole thing that Adobe's doing, with how expensive it is and it being a paid, like a monthly payment for Photoshop, it just, with Procreate, with that slick like $5.99 price, and you're good to go and you get everything. I can just go on for days. You guys. Just Procreate is where you want to be. And the one thing about that is it has to be on an iOS device, which is kind of sad that they can't expand out to PC or anything, but you'll have to get it on an iPad. So that's my recommendation for best drawing software at the moment. The next one we have is, were you self-taught? How can I learn to draw like you? So I do attribute a lot of my ability to draw to being self-taught. I did attend an art college, though they weren't very instrumental in helping me learn how to draw, but more so learn how to just 3D model and animate. And most of what you see of my style today, I think, attributes to being self-taught, which is thanks to, if you've seen my story video, it's because I've been so obsessed with the intricacies of the manga style. And like, the reason I like that is because it has like a nice balance between detailed and not so detailed in the shadowing. So it gives me a chance to bust out drawings faster than, than say one, like a full painting, because I don't have like the patience to work on something that's like any longer than 5 hours. So how did I learn to draw? Like, was I self-taught? Yes, because I learned, I think, through just watching YouTubers, just YouTube artists, tutorials, and like time lapses. Like, I watched the League of Legends splash art time lapses all the time growing up. Studied and copied and like kind of practiced the poses of all the various comic books that I've read growing up. I would like take that picture and I would draw it. And like just watching shows like Dragon Ball and Batman. So, it's just drawing every day. That's how you improve. And that's, if you're looking to be self-taught, it's definitely supplemental to watch tutorials and to maybe take some online classes if you're really serious about it. But as long as you're just devoted to wanting to draw, your heart knows where you want your style to be. It'll eventually get there if you just keep working at it. So that's my very long answer to the were you self-taught question. And we'll be moving on to the next one, which is, how do you get better at drawing, and especially anatomy? So a little bit of that first part was already answered in the last one, which is like, how can you get better at drawing? But anatomy specifically, I'd say I learned a lot through, I hate that my answer is always Dragon Ball, but like, there's a lot of ripped, buff, shirtless dudes in that show, and you got to know where the muscle structure is to be able to make the drawings that you make look accurate. Various other like Spider-Man is a good reference of anatomy, because his suit is very skin tight and you can kind of see where all the muscle groups are. But I mean, I would recommend picking up a anatomy book, which I have yet to do, though I do definitely recommend it. So just so you can know where all the muscles, kind of how they lead into each other. But the way I learned was through kind of looking at professional artists draw, like Spider-Man or like, Goku or something. Like, for example, whenever I'm drawing something with like really intense muscle structure, like take Spring from my Axial Regiment series, he's got like a really buff body. The way I will try to confirm where the muscles are in that is I'll reference certain artists that I'll follow, and I'll see their pieces and how they did it for like really buff characters, and I'll just kind of follow the loose framework of that. So yeah, hopefully these answers are making sense. I'm sort of blasting through them with very scattered answers, but hopefully you're getting something out of it. So that being said, we'll move on to the next one. What are some techniques or ways I could improve on creating dynamic poses? So whenever somebody asks me that and they kind of want to approach the more dynamic side, I've been through this in the Spider-Man video, I think, but I always tell them to look at a body as if it's a landscape drawing, right? You know, in a landscape, you need the foreground, middle ground, and background. And if you just apply that same set of rules to a really kind of dynamic pose, then it makes a little bit more sense. So usually in a dynamic pose, like something will be really close up to the camera, whether it be a face, a head, hand, or a foot, what have you. But you just pick a body part that you want like coming real close up to the camera, and that's going to be your foreground. Then your middle ground is going to be kind of the torso, maybe the one leg, just kind of like the body part of it. And the background is going to be whatever, you know, like the other hand or the other foot. So you need just like pick what you want to be up in the face of the camera and then work backwards from there. So say I want to draw a picture of Spider-Man kicking, right? So I'll draw his foot like really really big, really close up to the camera. And then the middle ground would be like his leg, his extended leg, and then also his torso and head maybe. And then the background would be his like back arm, maybe like being swung backwards or something. So that's kind of how I approach the more dynamic poses. All right, moving right along. We have a couple more questions left that I want to get to because I don't want to make this video go on for too long, as my last video was like 30 minutes. So the next one would be, so basically, who inspired me to do a comic and how do I begin one? There's definitely a lot of inspiration behind reading the comics that I'm reading now, like My Hero Academia, and I'm reading Dr. Stone. I need to read more American comics, that's for sure, because I haven't really had a chance to dip over. I'm only subscribed to the Shonen Jump's website, so I see the new stuff that they have, but I don't think, as far as like somebody telling me to make a comic was an inspiration, but more so just wanting to have something that I could be known for in a way. Inspired me to make a comic. Like I started designing all these characters, and I felt like people wouldn't relate to them unless they had a story behind them. So that's kind of where Sincerely Elise was born. Like the designs were originally made as stickers to just sell as a sticker set. And then I kind of fell in love with drawing them over and over again. And I was like, man, I kind of want these people to relate to who these characters are. So that's when I started adding a story behind it and fleshing out the story. And it's just like kind of a fun exercise to world build around your characters. And it eventually got to the point where there was enough information to just start making a comic out of it. So that's kind of how I started Sincerely Elise. And as far as the inspiration goes, it's, as I mentioned before, just all the manga artists and even a couple comics on Webtoon I read. It's inspiring to see somebody continually push out content for a story. And that's kind of where I decided to approach it. So right now, I guess is a good opportunity to say that I am almost done with chapter 3 of Sincerely Elise, and I'm like 4 or 5 pages away. I can't wait, because then I'll have 2 more chapters until the first volume is done, and that's super exciting because it's going to end at a really cool point, I think. If you haven't had a chance, check out the comic. It's free. You can just go on the website and read through it. Tell me what you think, DM me, tell me anything. Like, I'd love to hear what you think about it. While I'm also developing a comic that's not going to be a web comic, and it's just going to be a one-shot graphic novel. At the end of the day, it's because I want something to keep going back to. When I don't have any ideas for a new piece to draw, I'll just always have that comic to expand on and work on. And I gave it a really long story on purpose, so I could always have something to keep going back to. And I'm speaking of Sincerely Elise specifically, as I do want to make shorter stories that are a bit more condensed, which is like the Axial Regiment graphic novel that I'm currently working on. That giant plug aside, we're going to move on to the last question, which is what is the best way to outline your drawings with a brush pen without messing up your drawing. Now, I am a huge backer of post-production, and after you do mess up your drawing, I'll take it into Photoshop and I'll clean it up for the actual post on Instagram if there's any sort of out of whack black line that doesn't belong there. But if it's like an actual drawing that's maybe like for a customer or something, I'll always use whiteout. Copic opaque. It's a great way to kind of hide those lines that kind of go out of whack as you're inking. But I mean, the best way to do it is to just have a really solid undersketch, or know where your line's gonna end up before you make it. Like kind of in your head before you make the line, kind of draw it out before you actually do put pen to paper. As I find, like, if I know where the line is gonna end, then it helps me kind of guide my way there. And hopefully you might see some of that unfold in the way I inked the La Brava drawing. But yeah, I mean, that's the best advice I can give you for that one. So yeah, that's gonna be all the questions for today. I'm probably gonna do a part 2 down the line. With all that being said, that's gonna wrap up this first AMA. I hope you guys found some tips out of it that you could apply to your work. Please leave a comment below. Let me know if it was helpful. Ooh, I also want to add, if you have any extra questions, like, you could also leave them in the comments below, because I can also take those and mix them with the AMA polls that I put on Instagram and kind of go between those. And your question will probably get featured on the screen, so that's pretty cool. Little name shout out, right? But yeah, stay safe out there and take it easy, y'all.